Many students who fail in school today become prison inmates tomorrow. A former Chester Upland School District superintendent stated in a report to the Department of Education that her school district was a school-to-prison pipeline. 6% of her students headed to college, 5% went to prison. Turned off by curriculum viewed as irrelevant to their lives, turned out by school zero-tolerance codes, vulnerable youth face dangerous streets lacking family and school support. Academic failure, truancy, and dropping out of school predict adult criminal behavior. A 1998 study by Farrington showed that 20% of boys with poor elementary school performance were convicted of violent offenses as adults. A 2008 Pennsylvania Commission on Crime and Delinquency report stated that even if Pennsylvania provided an additional $700 million in new spending for prisons, there would be more prison overcrowding in Pennsylvania in 2013 than there was in 2008. In 1980, Pennsylvania had 8,000 inmates in prison. Today, that number exceeds 51,000. In an era of reduced public revenue, a better way does have to be found. Student-operated youth courts promote listening to the student voice. Much of what went wrong in Luzerne County occurred because nobody was listening to the stories of the juvenile offenders. Youth courts give students a voice. Both the respondents, which is the term we use for offenders, and student volunteers. Instead of viewing students as the problem, we see them as the primary resource in a youth court system. The Chester Youth Court motto, which they came up with and which we had no input into whatsoever, is students helping students make better decisions. And I thought that was pretty insightful for a bunch of high school students to come up with that. In 2007, the Chester Upland School District received a service learning grant to reduce the high rate of truancy. They conducted a survey and asked students why the truancy rate was so high. The students gave 3 reasons. Number 1, curriculum was irrelevant to their day-to-day lives. Number 2, family issues, taking care of parents, grandparents, siblings, children, etc. And number 3, inconsistent school discipline, inconsistent discipline by the administration of the school. Realizing they could not impact the first 2 reasons, students chose youth court to improve inconsistent school discipline. So they knew they couldn't affect 1 and 2, but they thought maybe a youth court could affect the inconsistent discipline in the school. We visited the Washington, D.C. Youth Court in 2007, the largest in the nation, and adopted many of its features in our court. As the court evolved, we added hall walking, profanity, disruption, dress code, and cell phone violations to the list of cases that we handle. Youth courts are pure justice disciplinary systems that capitalize on the fact that many youth value the opinion of their peers far more than they value the opinion of adults. They operate on the power of positive peer pressure. Just as negative peer pressure encourages bad behavior, positive peer pressure contributes to an improved conduct. Youth courts are a platform for youth development using creative dispositions to help respondents reach their potential and develop necessary competency skills. The Chester Youth Court uses restorative justice, seeking to make the family, the school, the neighborhood, the victim, and the respondent whole. Youth court jurors tell respondents that their intention is not to punish them, but to restore and help them not to repeat their mistakes. Our court welcomes all volunteers, not just the brightest. We don't go through the halls and talk to the teachers and find the smartest kids that are achieving at high levels and say, come to our youth court. We take whoever shows up. Many respondents choose to volunteer in youth court after completing their mandatory jury duty, competent component of their disposition. And in fact, research that's been done suggests that about 1/4 of all youth court respondents that are coming through the system because they've done something wrong end up joining the youth court when they're done because they think it's such a good idea. Training ensures youth court volunteers learn key legal concepts and court processes needed to operate a courtroom. Students are judges, bailiffs, clerks, advocates, and jurors. Successful completion of the disposition results in expunction of the offense. We use law students, judges, private attorneys, professors, parole officers to train the students. We provide 7 to 8 hours of legal training followed by 7 to 8 hours of specific youth court training. Youth court members must pass an online test developed by the National Association of Youth Courts before they can sit in the jury. Youth courts improve self-confidence, public speaking, and teamwork competencies. These skills will be used the rest of their lives. Even students with low literacy skills easily learn how to help run a youth court. Students have also learned to have more respect for the rule of law, the consequences of rule breaking, and taking responsibility for their own actions. One student said youth court was the most challenging activity that he encountered at school on a day-to-day basis. Students find youth court rewarding and reconnect to the educational process. Florida estimates youth courts save taxpayers tens of millions of dollars to their juvenile justice system. Our after-school youth court just completed our third year of operations. The last year, we integrated youth court within the social studies curriculum at Chester High School. We were contacted by the University of Texas Law School after they read our research article, and they created a middle school youth court as an alternative to school suspension in Austin, Texas. Next year, we're developing youth courts at 3 additional schools in Chester, one being an elementary school. We have support from the local judiciary, the Bar Association, and colleges. Youth courts can be school-based, juvenile justice-based, or they can serve both systems, which is, we think, the preferred model and which is what they're doing in Arizona. Youth courts advance 4 social goals. They're an alternative to punitive discipline. They develop citizenship, socialization, and academic skills. They reconnect a community to the rule of law and the justice system, and they stem the flow of students into the school-to-prison pipeline. By relying on student resources for operations, they're very cost-effective. I've taken the liberty of making some recommendations which I may alter a bit based on the testimony that I've heard this morning. But basically, I read the Interbranch Commission report, and I really thought it was extraordinary. I have seldom seen such candor in a public document. I think they know what's wrong. One area where I would add a thought is, my understanding is that the Interbranch Commission is going to disband. I think that's a mistake. I think that if you're going to implement juvenile justice reform in Pennsylvania, and you realize, as the report suggests, that public education needs to be part of that solution, you're talking 2 huge systems, juvenile justice and the education system. You're talking complex systems. You're talking billions of dollars. To simply order those systems to work together and collaborate, in my opinion, will not give you the results that you want. If the Interbranch Commission would retain control, authority, jurisdiction of the process over the next few years as this thing is implemented, I think that would be a very powerful impetus for the systems to conform. It's hard to change a system. I mean, my job, what I do on a daily basis, is I'm working at the intersection of these 3 systems: child welfare, juvenile justice, and education. They've each been around for decades or generations. They each have tons of money. Lots of jobs are at stake, lots of reputations, lots of careers, lots of egos. It's just the way we are as human beings. If you want to change juvenile justice in Pennsylvania, I think you need the power of an interbranch commission to oversee that process. So that was my first recommendation.